Automobilista 2 and iRacing with big updates. That and other news right here, right now. Greetings from me, you're watching RomWrom, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing and a regular news roundup or weekly sim racing news. As was to be expected after they started making noises last week, see the link up there, Reza is gearing up for a release quite soon, pun intended, and have dropped their first developer update in months. And speaking about big things, it's definitely happening this week, but we're not allowed to tell you more yet. Thrustmaster just announced something between sim racing hardware and collector's item, and it's pretty wild. It's called the Ferrari 499P Centenary Winner Edition, and it's based on the Ferrari 499P that won Le Mans during the track's centenary year 2023, and the limited production run of 499 units is almost certainly a deliberate nod to the car's name rather than a coincidence. The whole thing is a three-way partnership between Thrustmaster, Ferrari and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Pre-orders opened yesterday, June 13, timed to coincide with the start of the 2026 Le Mans race. The wheel is built at 1:1 scale relative to the actual Ferrari 499P steering wheel. The rear casing is carbon fiber handling. Each of the 499 units has an individual numbered plate integrated directly into the wheel. Thrustmaster describes all of these as Ferrari excellence and a truly unique collector's piece, which is the kind of blah blah you'd expect. On the feature side, there's a 4.3-inch LCD screen displaying up to 140 parameters through an interface modeled on the real car's dashboard. You get 16 buttons and rotary encoders with backlit edges, 4 aluminum rotary encoders, 3 encoders in the colors of Italy, carbon paddles, aluminum analog shifters, 15 RPM LEDs, and 10 configurable flag LEDs. Up to 25 action buttons can be assigned in compatible simulations. Thrustmaster calls this no compromises on immersion and realism, which is a bold claim. This is explicitly designed to be displayed as much as used. The set includes a steel display stand that can power the screen and backlighting while the wheel is off your rig. Thrustmaster frames this as the wheel deserving to be showcased, which is marketing speak, but the stand being functional rather than purely decorative is a practical detail worth noting. Beyond the wheel itself, the collector's set includes an official 24-hour Le Mans poster by Automobilist with gold foil embossing, a blueprint of the wheel, the Le Mans Ultimate Base Sim plus the full 2024 season DLC, and the ELMS Season Pass. The wheel uses Thrustmaster's next generation quick release system and is compatible with the T598 and T818 bases, so if you're not on one of those two, this isn't going to work for you without an upgrade. RENNSPORT pushed out a free update on Thursday, June 11th with a second silent hotfix for the BMW M Hybrid V8, adjusting its collision bounding box, dropping later. Two new tracks are the headline addition, Laguna, Seca and Sebring. Both are permanent additions to the roster. The developers describe both tracks in fairly dramatic terms, calling them among the most uncompromising in North America and framing the corkscrew as a near mystical experience. I mean, they're good tracks, no doubt about it, but they laid pretty thick here. The expected Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 RS Club Sport is not in this update. It's done, but it got held back because of technical bottlenecks that caused problems with a previous release. The developers say they'd rather ship what's ready than delay everything waiting for one car. The Porsche is still coming, just not yet. This update brings the second iteration of the NPC system. The developers are straightforward that this came directly from a community survey feedback which flagged NPCs as a top priority and was further refined using telemetry data gathered from actual player races over the preceding weeks. The NPCs have been made frame rate independent for critical logic segments, meaning behavior should now be consistent regardless of your hardware. It's presented as a gradual improvement rather than a complete fix. The NPCs are also faster overall, though the developers describe this as a marked increase, with opponents now more confident at the limit, which is promotional language for simply raising the pace. Paving has been improved to keep cars on track more consistently, with the developers claiming a drastic reduction in grass excursions. Two specific bugs have been fixed. First, the phantom braking issue where NPC cars would randomly slam the brakes for no reason, which was particularly bad on the Daytona Oval but affected all circuits. Second, NPCs on banked circuits were taking terrible lines and scraping walls, particularly once again on the Daytona Oval. Two smaller fixes rounded out a wiggle bug affecting NPCs while driving and a false start issue on certain tracks. The developers acknowledge that NPC collision problems are still present, especially on Sebring and Nordschleife, and that they still struggle with the carousels on the Nordschleife. Work on the next iteration is already underway. A few other fixes are worth knowing about. A championship standings bug was recording race winners as second place finishers in the global standings. A session transition bug was marking all drivers as DNS, that did not start, when moving from practice to qualifying. The Mercedes-Benz CLK LM 1998 had a dashboard display bug where telemetry wasn't updating correctly at speed. The telemetry interface has now been fully translated across all supported languages, and a missing audio issue with the 956 has been resolved. Separate from the update itself, RENNSPORT Standard Edition is getting a permanent 50% price reduction effective next Friday, June 19th. This was announced previously at the Munich Summit, so it's not new news, but it's now confirmed and dated. The cut applies across all storefronts at the same time, which the developers say fixes their previous problem of inconsistent discount timing across platforms. Discounts on other content will still be handled platform by platform as constraints allow. iRacing's 2026 Season 3 update dropped on June 9th, with the season officially starting June 16th at midnight UTC. It's a big one. iRacing describes it as having more fixes than a pit crew could handle at a 24-hour race, which is the kind of line you either love or roll your eyes at. I personally love it. 3 new cars are joining the service. The BMW M2 Racing is the headline edition and it's free for all members as part of the base content package. Rain Racing and NPC support are both included. The Euro NASCAR RC01 is the second new car available in the store as a paid edition. This is the car used across all 3 Euro NASCAR divisions. Rain Racing and NPCs are both supported here too. The third editions, yes plural, are the Formula V Cutlass and Conqueror, sold as a 2-pack. These are purely cosmetic variants of the existing Formula V Classic with identical physics and parameters. The Cutlass draws on Australian Formula V design elements, the Conqueror on British ones. Both support Rain Racing and NPCs. The original Formula V has been renamed Classic to avoid confusion. Coronado is a brand new iRacing designed road course built in partnership with NASCAR for the 2026 Cup Series season. Laguna Seca has been completely rebuilt from scratch using new laser scan data and updated artwork, including newly added 3D modeled curbs. The old version has been retired and any pending hosted sessions using it have been cancelled without charge. If you already owned the paid license, you'll get the new version free. If you were grandfathered into free access from before September 2025, when it moved to paid content, you'll now need to buy a license. That's a sneaky thing to do. Charlotte Motor Speedway has a new Rallycross dirt road config that removes the Joker pathway entirely and it's free to all members. The Roval configs have had cones added on the apron at turns 1, 2 and 3, 4. Track camera sets and pit crew animations have been updated and some Toyota wall ads have been fixed to remove a visual fans artifact. The Roval Track Rules tab has also been updated. Chicagoland Speedway and Oran Park Raceway have both received major art overhauls covering track surfaces, buildings, scenery, foliage, lighting and shaders. Chicagoland also gets updated safer foam barriers and night lighting. Both tracks have updated camera sets. Magny-Cours and Oschersleben have both received fully 3D modeled curbs, which will physically affect the feel and racing line in certain areas. Oschersleben also gets improved water reflections, updated tire barriers and an updated speed tree foliage system. Magny-Cours gets 3D grass, some updated trees and an updated camera set. 3 tracks have their world orientation corrected: Fairbury Speedway, Pocono Raceway and Rockingham Speedway, which all had north pointing the wrong way. Rockingham also gets a new safe barrier on the front straight and increased grid stall counts across its configs. Several tracks have had pit and grid stall counts adjusted. Concord, Five Flags, Langley and New Smyrna have grid counts increased to 60. On the other hand, Concord, Dover, Five Flags and Langley have had pit stall counts reduced to more realistic numbers. Langley's pit entry has also been repositioned so the cones are no longer sitting on the ideal race line. The Long Beach Street Circuit has a stiffer penalty for cutting turn 5 and a tire barrier there is now a solid object. Sebring's pit wall has been repositioned to match its current real-world location, with some asphalt textures and hauler truck textures also updated. Sonoma's Rallycross config has had its pit exit removed entirely since pitting isn't permitted in Rallycross. Daytona had a bug fix where bypassing the infield on the pit-out lap only triggered a drive-through penalty. Brands Hatch Rallycross has a stiffer slowdown penalty at turn 3. Motorland Aragon has optimized track limits and a new slowdown penalty at the final hairpin to stop people using the runoff to start a hot lap. Lania National Speedway dirt had painted track lines that weren't accumulating rubber correctly, now fixed. North Wilkesboro had crowd members floating in the air, they have been grounded. Several tracks have received smaller visual updates which we won't go into here. The big NPC news is Dirt Oval support, which is now live for the first time. The 2 supported cars are the Dirt Street Stock and the Dirt Legends Ford 34 Coupe across 12 tracks. More dirt cars will follow as training continues. iRacing announces this with "The wait is over, NPC drivers are ready to sling dirt." 7 additional cars have been added to NPC support: BMW M2 Racing, Euronascar RC01, Formula V Cutlass and Conqueror, Pontiac Solstice Rookie and Radical SR8. NPCs are also now available at all 3 Monza combined configs and the new Laguna Seca. NPC driving skills have been improved for a lot of series and tracks. Their tire thermodynamics have been improved to better match what the player experiences, with temperature sensitivity specifically updated for the NASCAR Legends, both Welland Tour Modifieds and the Radical SR10. NPC drivers now also adjust their fuel loads during practice based on the race session length. A display bug showing incorrect RPM and gear values on NPC cars has also been fixed. The patch notes include a section called the AI Training Semester with fake courses titles like The Wild West of Applied Racing Geometry and Sand Mandalas with 410s at Eldora Speedway. It's a running joke in iRacing patch notes and it's a fun read. Series-specific sporting regulations is a significant new feature. Events can now have a specific rule set applied that changes pit stop procedures, vehicle configurations or driver aid settings to match real-world series rules. Only one rule set can be active per event. The feature works in hosted sessions and leagues but not in NPC or test drive events. Seems they liked what they saw in Automobilista 2, which has had them for a while. The rule sets available cover a wide range. IMSA allows simultaneous fuel and tire service, NEC uses simultaneous service but with a significantly slower Nürburgring fuel pumped rate, DTM uses simultaneous service with extra crew for much faster tire changes, and so on. iRacing now supports Anycast network routing as the default connection method for race servers. The short version, your connection enters iRacing's private network at the nearest possible point rather than traveling across public internet infrastructure all the way to the server. It's enabled by default and can be turned off in the launcher network settings if needed. For most people it will make little practical difference, but iRacing says it improves connection stability even in cases where Anycast latency is slightly higher than the traditional unicast routing. A new command line tool called iRacing ping.exe is included in the installation. It probes iRacing race servers using both unicast and Anycast for both IPv4 and IPv6 with a default of 4 probes. It only works with iRacing servers, not general purpose ping targets. The 6 race farm locations are Sydney, Sao Paulo, Frankfurt, Tokyo, US East and US West. And you can check your ping times to each farm directly in the launcher by clicking the connections icon and hovering over the bar graphs. 3 new widgets have been added to the Sims UI. The track map comes in 4 variants. The standard track map shows the full layout with all cars and turn numbers. The minimap zooms in on your car and rotates to match your direction of travel. The flat map puts all cars on a single horizontal line, useful for tight UI layouts above or below a virtual mirror. The radial map is modeled on real-world pit wall displays, abstracting the track shape into a set of rings. The outer ring shows cars on the lead lap, the second ring shows cars 1 lap down, the third shows cars 2 or more laps down, and cars in the pit lane are shown on a separate horizontal line in the center. All ring gaps are time normalized rather than distance based, except the pit lane line, which stays distance based. Cars are represented with dots that indicate class by shape and color, with your own car shown larger and outlined in white. A red dotted outline means a car has lapped you, light blue means you've lapped them, and the pace car gets a gray circle labeled PC. The fuel calculator widget starts working after either 5% of race time or 10 minutes have passed, whichever comes first. It offers 6 calculation modes: last lap, last 10 laps, session average, minimum lap usage, maximum lap usage, and target. The target mode lets you enter either a units per lap figure or a target lap count for a full tank, which it converts for you. There's a pit window display that shows orange before you can pit and turns green once you're inside the window. There's also a green-white checker margin feature that lets you add extra laps to your fuel estimates to account for potential overtime. GWC adjusted values are always shown in parentheses alongside the standard values, and the feature switches off if you set the GWC count to 0. The third new widget is the incident tracker, which displays your current incident points, the event limits, and the disqualification threshold. Beyond the new widgets, controls profiles can now be saved and switched from within the sim. Widgets can now be resized by dragging a handle in layout exit mode, currently covering the track map, virtual mirror, and chatbox vertical scaling. Tire compound stems are now displayed for all cars in the relative and standing black boxes. Class caps during multi-class pacing are now shown in the UI. The number of background colors used to distinguish car classes has been increased. A new force feedback and haptics page consolidates all the advanced force feedback settings in one place. Unicode support has been added to the Sim UI, though painted car names and radio channel labels don't have full Unicode support yet. The Session Rules widget is now available for spotters and spectators. ABS highlights in the throttle brake widget now appear in replays, and auto fuel now re-enables automatically on pit exit when the relevant setting is active, regardless of other pit box reset settings. In the launcher, Series Discovery now walks new users through choosing preferred racing disciplines on first use, with preferences resettable anytime. The Match All Tags filter toggle gives more precise control over how tags combined in search results. Simplified Chinese has been added as the supported language. The dynamic track system has had a number of changes. Shadow calculations now properly account for sun angle when affecting surface temperatures. Solar energy in static weather has been reduced to better match realistic weather modes. Heat transfer from opponent tire sliding has been improved, particularly for dirt surfaces. Track cleaning staff at road courses have been made less efficient on purpose. With auto clean on and leave marbles off, the cleaning within racing lines is now slightly less thorough, and some dust remains in areas outside normal racing lines, which is more realistic. Overall dust generation has been scaled down slightly, and aerodynamic removal of dust is less aggressive than before. Gravel is now harder to shift aerodynamically than dust. Marble clearance from secondary grooves due to passing cars has been improved. iRacing also notes that the Oval Refresh initiative is an ongoing investigation into how track surface temperature, rubber accumulation, marble formation and particle size interact to affect grip. Separately, they're studying how the aerodynamic wash from passing cars helps sweep the racing line, with a goal of more accurately simulating how grooves widen over a race. These are framed as active research areas rather than completed features. Track temperature no longer changes on session restart. Water drainage calculations have been fixed at various tracks. Pace car release timing during cautions has been improved. A bug allowing drivers to extend race length by ignoring pace laps has been fixed. The tow option now works correctly when close to your pit box. The BMW M Hybrid V8 has been updated to the Evo specification. It's a free automatic update that replaces the previous version for all existing owners. The Dallara IR18 now has ramp flaps and the Indy 500 body wicker active only at Indianapolis. A right rear lamp illumination bug has also been fixed. The Porsche 911 Cup 992.2 has received several changes. A TC toggle is now available for quickly killing traction control beyond pit lane speed. The ABS has been adjusted so that when the car is spinning or facing the wrong way, the wheels lock to keep it predictable, with no effect on ABS behavior on the normal driving. Rearward draft power has been reduced, side draft power increased, and engine cooling in draft situations has been reduced. A garage adjustable headline pinstripe has been added. In-car audio is less dull at high RPM, and transmission sounds have been improved. Both NASCAR Well and Tour Modified variants have received full ground-up rebuilds. The Tour Modified gets rebuilt front and rear suspension matched to real work specs. New bias ply tires with separate left and right compounds, less aerodynamic downforce, updated brakes with different front and rear pad compounds to reduce bias shift at high temperatures, and a reorganized garage with Tour Modified specific tech limits. The rear track bar now uses a live height system showing actual mount heights above the ground. Spring rates vary by track type, with stiffer options available for larger tracks. Shock adjustment range is half from 40 to 20 clicks, but the overall range stays the same, so each click is a coarser adjustment. Setups will no longer transfer between the two modified variants. The SK Modified gets the same structural treatment plus a new 604 crate engine. The compression shock is not adjustable on the SK but has been set to match the Tour Modified 10 setting as a baseline. The Super Formula SF23 clutch now uses thermal modeling. First gear is now required for race starts, and the sim will apply realistic consequences if you ignore that. The launch limiter has also been retuned. GT3 traction control has been significantly reworked using input from a professional GT driver. The TC range is now split between dry and wet tire types, and the TC toggle is disabled above pit lane speed. GT3 drafting parameters for both radiator cooling and side-by-side racing have been updated. ABS parameters have been updated. GT3, GT4 and GTE balance of performance has been fine-tuned across the board, with GT4 receiving specific parameter updates for intra-class balance. GTE cars can now have anti-roll bars adjusted during pit stops, and the TC toggle is disabled above pit lane speed there too. GTE side-by-side drafting parameters have also been adjusted. There were a lot of individual car changes, but this segment is already going long. Link to the full details is as always in the description. Audio rendering has been improved for CPU stability. A bug causing non-replay audio emitters to be created during replay playback has been fixed, which was hurting replay performance. The Porsche 956 had a missing audio issue that has been resolved. On the graphics side, far terrain can no longer be disabled in the INI file since it never had a meaningful performance cost. Debris particles now travel 25% less vertically to stop pieces flying around unrealistically. OpenXR gets a new resolution scale setting in the renderer unit. Two visual bugs have been fixed: particle flickering or incorrect shaders at night, and a detached wheel leaving its particle emitter running permanently. Rain is now visible in mirrors, which iRacing describes as slaying vampiric rain in the patch notes, keeping up with the vampire joke of the last ones. The spotter now warns you when rejoining the track at a bad angle or speed, with calls triggered if cars are within 5 seconds behind. These calls stop automatically if you straighten up and speed up appropriately, and they're disabled if your chattiness setting is below high. Low priority spotter calls are now suppressed when higher priority calls are queued. Spotter packs now support UTF-8 characters. 2 new spotter packs have been added: Mandarin Chinese by Tongdi and Czech by Mira Klastek. The Italian, Spanish and Portuguese packs have all been updated. In replays, dashboard values on opponent cars now show more accurate numbers, though your own car's data is unaffected since that uses real telemetry. A text chat corruption bug in replays has been fixed. 2 control binding fixes have been made. The ignition control can be bound to switches again, and multi-button presses can be bound to controls again. The binding display also now handles more cases, including one key mapped to multiple functions. And now I'm going into an oxygen tent, as I suppose the developers did after this enormous amount of work. Le Mans Ultimate dropped 2 small patches this week, fixing some issues at Lassard, a small balance of performance adjustment, some car corrections, and fixing the game from being locked in what they call a dead state when a practice server closed. Yeah, some companies do make small patches. As I said in the intro, Reza dropped 2 big developer updates for Automobilista 2, and there's a lot to unpack. The software update is planned to be version 1698, which took longer than planned, mostly due to some licensing complications we'll get into in a moment. There may even be a second software update landing before the end of June, so it could be a busy couple of weeks. The big addition are Renault open-wheelers. 3 cars are confirmed: the 2005 R25, the 2006 R26 and the 2008 R28. Reza says the deal goes further than just these 3, so more Renault content is apparently on the way, though nothing specific has been announced. They're also working on rival cars from the same era to race against the Renaults, but those haven't been confirmed for this update either. Beyond Renault, 4 Formula classes are being added or updated, covering the 2000s F1 era. The existing Formula V10 Gen 2 class is getting a full overhaul to bring it in line with the new additions. Then there are 3 brand new classes: Formula V10 Gen 3 representing the 2005 season with Alonso versus Raikkonen, Formula V8 Gen 1 covering 2006 with Alonso versus Schumacher, and Formula V8 Gen 2 representing a later season at the peak of aerodynamic complexity with winglets and deflectors everywhere. Each class has been modeled to reflect the specific rules of its era. Driving aids, tire compounds, engine ref limits, refueling rules, it's all been taken into account. Speaking of which, new qualifying formats are being added too: the 12-lap qualifying limit from 1993 to 2002 and the single hot lap shootout from 2003 to 2005. Parc Fermé rules are also in, locking setup options from the first qualifying run through to the race. One thing that won't make it into this update is the 2005 rule requiring drivers to use the same set of tires across qualifying and race. That's planned for version 1.7 later this year. Also worth noting, the 2005 Endurance Pack is getting a sequel soon. Reza call it very popular, though they don't back that up with any numbers, but there's no reason for disbelief. New engine audio has been recorded and implemented for both the V10 and V8 cars. Traction control and launch control sounds have also had code level work done to make them land properly from both the cockpit and trackside. Reza are confident the results are good, though that's obviously something you'll want to judge for yourself. As we said in last week's news, they dropped a video with sounds, lots of sounds. Wonderful sounds. On the atmosphere side, air horn crowd sounds are being added to grandstands at the 2001 and 2005 tracks, and the volume will actually react to what's happening on track. Air horns were phased out of most sporting events around 2010, so this is a nice period accurate touch. Reza says this is just the first step toward more dynamic crowd behavior, with more planned throughout the rest of 2026. 6 historic track configurations are coming with this update. Barcelona gets 2 variants, 1999 and 2001. Imola 2005 is in. Indianapolis 2001 gets both the road course and the speedway oval, and Spielberg 2001 rounds out the pack. Monza 2005 is also available, but only if you already own the premium track pack or the Monza DLC. The NPCs are getting a proper pit strategy overhaul. Right now, the NPCs simply make sure they have enough fuel to finish. From 1698 onwards, they will actually calculate an optimal stop window based on race length, fuel weight penalty per lap, and expected pit loss time. They won't always follow the optimal strategy to the letter though, especially for cars further back in the field who might gamble on track position. Reza are clear this is a first step and more work is needed, but for races at 40% distance or longer, it should already be a noticeable improvement. The Hungaroring is also joining AMS2. It's coming in fully laser scanned and will sell for $7. The historic track pack sells separately for $8. Both will have a free trial period for the first few days after release, which is standard practice for Reza. On the tire side of things, the 2000s Formula classes are getting a proper tire war. The Formula V10 Gen 2, Gen 3 and V8 Gen 1 classes will split teams between Bridgestone and Michelin runners, each with distinct characteristics. Michelin had a squarer shoulder profile and more flexible sidewalls, giving sharper response and higher peak grip, but more susceptibility to graining. Bridgestone went the other way, stiffer sidewalls, more consistent behavior, better over curbs. Both manufacturers are modeled across all three classes with their respective strengths and weaknesses shifting depending on track and conditions. Tire graining is also being modeled, which is a big deal for this era. Graining happens when the tire surface heats up faster than the inner carcass, tearing strips of rubber off the surface that then fuse back on and create a rippled texture, killing performance. It's more likely in colder conditions on tracks with long straights followed by sharp corners, and can be influenced by driving style and setup. That said, graining won't actually be in 1698. It's coming in the follow-up update expected in the month. The 2004 and 2005 prototype and GT cars will also get dedicated tire brands physics in that same update. For anyone who doesn't want to deal with tire simulation complexity, or for multiplayer leagues that want a level playing field, options to standardize tire physics across the grid and to switch off tire damage, including graining and flat spots, will be added in that update too. The tire visuals are also getting an upgrade for open wheelers using something called parallax occlusion mapping. The short version is that tire treads will now look like they have actual depth without any meaningful performance cost. They'll cast shadows, receive ambient occlusion, and as the tire wears, you'll physically see the tread wearing down to the grooves. Graining will also only appear on the parts of the tire that actually touch the track. Now for the licensing with all of its legalese. Reza had been negotiating with McLaren to extend their existing licensing agreement and bring additional McLaren F1 cars to the sim. Those talks though hit a wall. McLaren's existing commercial commitments with other parties mean they can't license their F1 cars to a sim that also features officially licensed F1 content from other manufacturers. For whatever reasons, although I can imagine who's the culprit. The practical consequence is significant. Reza have now decided to prioritize keeping McLaren, which means the Brabham, Lotus and Renault F1 cars will eventually become generic unlicensed models for new purchasers. The timeline isn't final yet, but a decision is coming within weeks. Importantly, existing owners keep everything they have. Nothing changes for them. I would not have gone that way, but keep in mind Senna's most iconic car was a McLaren and Reza are a Brazilian company. This isn't just a problem for the current update either. The situation creates an ongoing licensing risk for future content as well, since IP holders' commercial situations can change and create new restrictions where none existed before. Because of this uncertainty, the new Formula cars, including the Renault F1 cars, are being released as free content rather than a paid DLC pack as originally planned, which is very gracious of Reza. That decision is already made and won't be reversed regardless of how the McLaren situation ultimately resolves. Reza acknowledged this is a financial hit for them, and it also means writing off the development investment they'd already put into content they expected to keep in the sim long term. Reza are at pains to point out there is no bad blood here. McLaren apparently handled the negotiations considerately, and the situation stems from pre-existing contractual obligations between other parties rather than anything targeted at Reza or AMS2. It's worth noting that Reza also described the whole thing as an unavoidable consequence of operating a product with an unusually complex licensing structure, which is probably fair. 2 DLCs are now on sale with 75% off: the Brazilian Racing Legends pack and the Formula High-Tech pack. If you want those cars with their official liveries and branding, now's the time. On the NPC front, beyond the pit strategy improvements already covered, NPCs are now getting track-specific setup adjustments. Every grade 1 and 2 circuit in AMS2 will now have custom NPC aerodynamic and gear ratio adjustments tuned for that specific track. Reza give a few examples. At Spa, the default setup runs more downforce than is actually optimal for most classes. At the Nordschleife, some cars were hitting the ref limiter on the long straight because the gearing wasn't adjusted, and at Azure Coast the NPCs weren't running enough downforce even where high downforce variants were available. Grade 3 and 4 layouts will be covered in future updates. On top of that, individual NPC drivers will now vary their setup choices from event to event. Some will run more downforce and be quicker through corners, others will go low downforce and make it up on the straights. Run the same event again and the same drivers might make different choices. This is more noticeable in Formula classes where aerodynamic setup makes a bigger difference and will have little to no effect on cars like Caterhams or Formula Juniors where aero isn't really a factor. Reza are keeping the variations modest to avoid creating more chaos than variety. NPC wet weather performance has been significantly improved for the classes that have already received their 1.7 physics revisions, which should make for more balance and competitive racing in the wet. A new feature is also coming for both multiplayer and single player: customizable power, weigh and drag scalars. In multiplayer, dedicated server admins can now assign ballast, power and drag values per Steam ID or set a default for anyone not on the list, all through a simple JSON file. In single player, the same scalars can be applied per livery through the existing custom AI driver files, and they apply to the human player too if they select one of those liveries. Mod makers can also use this to define which drivers are more likely to favor certain setup choices, which opens up some interesting possibilities for recreating Steam-specific performance characteristics. Full documentation is promised before release. The HUD has been overhauled and the new design will now be the default from 1698 onwards. The legacy design will still be available if you prefer it. The Formula V Gen 2 has been updated to reflect the 2026 season and now runs semi-slick tires, which gives it a clearer distinction from the Gen 1 car. Physics revisions that are part of the longer-term version 1.7 development are continuing. This update adds Stocks Cars Brazil, Stock USA, Sprint Race, Formula Junior, Formula Vintages, BMW M1 Pro Car, Caterhams, Hypercars, Supercars and the Camaro Street Car to the list of revised classes. Wet and intermediate tires for all revised classes have also been completely overhauled and should now behave much more realistically depending on water levels on track. Standing water is also back. Live track has been adjusted to allow puddles to form on the racing line again, something that had been disabled since version 1.6. More fine-tuning is still needed, but it's back. Finally, particle effects have been improved and optimized. Rain spray, tire smoke, dust and dirt smoke have all been refined, and the Formula V10 and V8 cars now emit heat haze from their periscope exhausts. The particles have also been optimized to be less of a performance hit. We'd love to see you soon, either as a patron or a subscriber, so we hope you choose to become the one or the other or both. And for sure, leave a like if you like this video.